Welcome back. This is the last segment of Citizens Forum, the Will and Jack Show. And I just want to say that the guests that we've had lately, I really just love what they're saying, because it seems like people are rising to the occasion. And I think that's something that we all really need to see. We all need to have this idea that the world is going to be a better place if we can just get there. Right now it's in a state of turmoil that hasn't been going on for probably thousands of years. I mean, it's hard to know where we're still the acceleration of change is still accelerating. And so, you know, it has to stop somewhere and reach a new equilibrium. But I love seeing that our guests, that we have people who are seeing the world and saying, I'm going to do something about that at my level, at the most local level. And so I want to start talking about Iceland, because both Jack and I have heard good things about what's happening in Iceland, and it seems to they prosecuted the bankers, right? The criminal bankers.
Yes, about 10 years ago. Yes.
Yeah, and then
put some of them in jail.
I read in this Christina book that when they do highways now, they use someone who's clairvoyant to determine how that aligns with the Earth's ley lines. And so and then there's something else. I think they're on the track to be completely sustainable by 2025, right?
I don't know.
I think it's something like that, though. It's very soon, and they're the country that has targeted the fastest transition. So we ought to keep a watch on Iceland, and we'll try to. And oh yeah, I know what it was. You talked about tell us about your.
The thing that has impressed me so much about Iceland most recently is the fact that they had a team in the World Cup, soccer's World Cup, last year. The United States didn't get a team in with a population of 300 million. Iceland has a population of about the same size as the CRD here, 300,000, something like that. How could a society that small manage to put together the ability to get a team into the World Cup? I mean, it just seems amazing. So on top of everything else,
we've got to watch them, because there's something magic going on there.
Yes, we should send a reporter over.
Well, we're gonna keep going. So, what else do you want to talk about, Jack? What have we got here?
Yeah. So today is June the 5th. So tomorrow is, I think, the 75th anniversary of D-Day. And I just want to use this to talk about a story that shows how bad things are. You know, you talk about people coming to the fore when needed, right? But we have to know what we're doing. So, I mean, my father fought in Europe against Germany in the Canadian Army, but and the media, you know, for days now, they show all the politicians are over there. And the media links itself to the sacrifice and honor of all the young men and women on both sides and on all sides whose lives were totally destroyed by that war. But what the media never tells us is a part of the truth that is so important, because if we knew it, we would know how misinformed we've been about everything. And here's the story I just want to talk about a little bit. This is from the Guardian newspaper, the British newspaper, The Guardian. It's from 2004. It's headlined, "How Bush's Grandfather Helped Hitler's Rise to Power." And it starts, rumors of a link between the US First Family and the Nazi war machine have circulated for decades. And it goes on to say, George Bush's grandfather, the father and grandfather of the two presidents, the late US Senator Prescott Bush, was a director and shareholder of companies that profited from their involvement with the financial backers of Nazi Germany. And what the story goes on to say is that Mr. Bush was part of a bank involving some of America's wealthiest families that was used to funnel money from industrialists and whoever, the most powerful people in the United States, to fund the Nazi Party and bring them to power in the 1920s and 1930s. And for that fact to be kept, because this is not conjecture or anything else, for that fact to be kept secret all of these years by the very media that pretends to care about the sacrifice of millions and millions and millions of people were killed. Cities were destroyed. And they won't even tell us that the very corporations and kinds of people that run our nations today funded the Nazis to bring them to power way back then. So what do we know about the reality of our lives and our history if this is the case, which unfortunately it is?
Well, it's very deep. I mean, that's one of the things that I'm recovering from, is being gaslighted for my whole life by the political system, and I think it's it's a difficult thing because you want to believe in your political system, and so it's when you finally see the underbelly of it, it's just unbelievable that that's what's really there. So, I guess the question this always raises for me is how do we keep our own sanity participating in such a system? But I want you to go on and talk about the other topics that you have.
Oh, okay. How about a citizens' assembly on democracy? I think that would be just a great idea for everybody. A citizens' assembly, let's say we did one here in, let's say, Victoria, and brought together, let's say, 40 or 50 people. It can be 100 people, it can be 10 people, but let's say 40 or 50 people. And set them to work as an assembly. Citizens' assemblies are chosen at random. So they represent the voice of the public, right? It's not the special interest groups, it's just people. And if we could put together a citizens' assembly on democracy that looked into our democracy and would tell us, as Trevor was saying earlier, how do we start to make the right decisions about the right things? And to me, the way to do it is simply to make sure the public is informed about the issues, and then the politicians should find out what we want in general and try to move our society in those directions, which is kind of the exact opposite of what happens now, which is that the 1% of the 1% control all the major politicians and all the political parties and own the media, and we have to live within the disaster which they create because it makes money for them, right? So we have homelessness, we have a malfunctioning healthcare system, we have everybody's in debt, people's health is not as, blah, blah, blah. Where do you stop?
Well, for me, the answer to all these things, the activism, is to reclaim my own personal sovereignty and just say, I'm going to participate in these things as little as possible because I don't believe that our leaders have our best interests at heart at the higher levels. I think that they're using us. So my own reaction to that is just to work in my garden and to try to have a neighborhood resiliency, because I absolutely don't believe that we're going to correct the system by rule of law or anything like that. I think it's useful to talk about it, but I've seen over my lifetime, I don't think I've ever voted for somebody that won, for example. So I just don't have a great amount of faith in the way the system is. And I'm certainly willing to talk about it, but I mean, the thing that I see is that we've got maybe 10 years before we have a crisis. Yeah, I mean, I'm going off that Jem Bendell paper, Deep Adaptation. And that's what I want to keep foremost in my mind, because I don't think our leaders are. I think that our local leaders are aware of these things and are willing to do something. But our higher up leaders seem to me that they're just trying to use us to make money. So I just can't see now, I just see that we need to do something more direct.
So what you're talking about is promoting local resiliency.
Yes.
Neighborhoods that that can take care of themselves.
Relocalization, because
Yeah.
we've gone out now. We've got this globalization. We've got this huge expansion of you can get strawberries any time of the year you want because they're growing somewhere. And you know, at some point that may end. It may end it may just be a local event. We have an earthquake and Vancouver Island doesn't have enough food. But I think that relocalization, getting back to where, I mean, I'm trying to go out to stores. I'm trying not to buy stuff on the internet now. I'm trying to just go out and meet people. So that's my activism. It may
And
sound silly, but
no, I agree with you 100%. And I fully support that. I'm more interested myself in trying to promote the governmental systems and the societal systems that will work with that to make it happen. I mean, it would be a lot easier if our governments and everything else were working in coordination with those ideas instead of saying, no, we're building another pipeline and we're doing Site C and blah, 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 right? So, because I think people want what you're saying, which means the government should want it too.
Well, I think Trevor was making a point about this, that the higher up leaders are not listening. So I think what we have to do at the most local level is just hope that if we work enough and we make enough of a difference in our community, then they'll pay attention to it. And one of the things I was thinking about, because I was talking to Nick Poeta
That's assuming that they're not totally corrupt.
Well, no, I mean, I think we can do things. For example, okay, so I was walking around Victoria and I was just looking at the number of lawns. Now, if maybe 10% of the people in Victoria got rid of their lawns and put in a garden, and if maybe that would, I think that if you walked around a city and you could just eat, that would be pretty cool. And I think you can do that in certain cities. Like I think Portland, Oregon is trying to do that, and I think Detroit, Michigan is also trying to reclaim a lot of that urban land and turn it into farmland. So I think once that happens, once that starts happening, that we'll see at the higher level, they're going to see, hey, wait a minute, these people aren't interested in what we're trying, they're not interested in being able to download stuff 2 times faster. They're interested in having gardens. I think that's how we have to vote, because they're not paying attention. If I go to the voting booth, they're not paying attention to my vote. We don't even know if my vote got counted correctly, right? So, you know, it's not a major disagreement. We're both saying we just see different ways of getting there. So.
How about a few words about Julian Assange?
Yeah, please go there.
Well, you know, I can't really go there because I never really followed the whole issue. But what I've seen is that here was a guy who did a lot of good stuff and stood up against the American empire.
Right.
And they've just treated, I mean, they're destroying him. It's like the message is, you come after us, we will destroy you, and they are.
Yes, well, so that is why we need to stay invisible and just work in our local communities. Because, I mean, I'm very grateful to Julian Assange and for what's the other fellow's name that so sort of the same time, the guy that was in the U.S. intelligence.
Oh, Snowden.
Yeah, Snowden.
And Chelsea Manning.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, see, these guys. I mean, I'm very grateful to. I don't have the courage to do something like that. I really don't. But I'm grateful to them for showing us, and that's part of the underbelly of the beast. I mean, this is the organization that's supposed to be protecting us, right? And instead, it's spying on us and making our lives miserable. So we need to get out of that somehow. But it doesn't work if you just go out there. You just get shot, or you get, I don't know what they've done to him, but he looks terrible now. Yeah. He looks like he's in bad shape. Yeah. Anything else? We have a minute left.
Okay, well, I'll finish off with D-Day again. We should be very, very, very careful that the same people who did this to us, to our fathers and grandfathers way back then, we have to make sure that we don't let them do it to us again, because their interest, obviously, is war. Yes. When they want it. And they don't care. They don't seem to care.
Well, my 6th grade Latin teacher was from Hungary, and he said, William, there has never been a time in the history of the world when men have made weapons and not used them. That stuck with me. That's the biggest thing I learned in 6th grade. Yeah. Jack, thanks. See you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching this segment of Citizens Forum.